I bought every one of these out of my own pocket. Harbor Freight did not sponsor this. The cheapest and surprisingly the most used in my garage is the Flux 125. I picked it up over 3 years ago when they first came out with it, and guaranteed it is the best $200 welder you can find. Just as it states, it's a Flux Core only welder. Don't let that fool you. I've done tons of projects with it, including railings, go-karts, even some light fixtures, and I think a coffee table. This thing could probably do about 80% of the projects you've got going. It's pretty surprising with how small and compact this is that it can do 3/16 of an inch no issue. Now some of the drawbacks with this machine are, well, it can't do really thin material, so auto body work, it can be done, but it might take a little extra effort. This strap, yeah, it's okay to carry, but it does get in the way here and there. It does have a cheap, MIG gun, and some people really complain. I don't, because it's my small project, but you can't fit a larger spool of wire on here. Not that any of those are a deal breaker, I still think it's worth it. If you are brand new to welding and just overwhelmed with what machine to get, start with a Flux Core welder. Yes, the other processes you can pick up along the way, but Flux Core is one of the easiest to learn, and it's one of the cheapest to get into. Moving up in price range, well, for 320 bucks you can pick up the Stick 225, and man, that's a lot of amps. So it is a stick only machine, and with it having DINS connections, technically you can pick up, a manual TIG torch, but we're not going to dive into that side of things. Why pick up a stick welder? Well, in reality, it's actually the most common industry used welding process. It's used for, your pipeline, even structural, and it's because it's great for outdoors. The flux coated rods, it's perfect. You don't have to deal with gas being blown away, and you don't have to deal with hauling around a gas bottle. So it's a great process to learn and just to have in your back pocket. It's also good for really thick materials. I mean, like mentioned, 225 amps out of this small of a machine. This thing, it doesn't care if there's mill scale or, rust. It will plow right through it. Now just make sure though that where you put your ground clamp, that is a rust-free good connection to go off of. This is the first one that comes with the 220 adapter, so it can be run off both 220 or 110 horsepower. Now, some things that I think titanium could have added to really just make this a top-notch machine would be some settings for arc force and hot start. Not gonna dive into those, but those are just some nice features that you can get with the stick welder. This really cheap electro holder. I mean, this Stinger is really the cheapest one I've seen out of any machine. They put the same one in their, multi-process welders. And yeah, I've had a couple of these little pieces break off really easily. The spring loses its force after a bit. The great thing is it does have DINS connections, so you can easily switch this out for a better one. Technically, there are two welders missing from this lineup. There's the MIG 140 and the Unlimited 200. And I haven't picked them up because, well, I have the big brother to the MIG 140, the MIG 170. Only difference between this and the 140 is this is dual voltage. And I don't have the Unlimited 200 because I've got the Unlimited 140. Likewise, the only difference is the 200, it can take 220 power. Diving into the MIG welders, you've got the MIG 140 and the MIG 170. MIG 140 starts at about $450, and this cost about $570. They definitely are a step up from the Flux 125, and it's not just because they can MIG weld, but it's the first ones with actual digital displays. They got a couple extra settings and knobs. They added a 4-touch, 2-touch setting. One down there for an inductance. I don't really ever mess with that. Keep it right in the middle. They also upgraded the ground clamp and the MIG torch. This thing, even though it looks a little smaller, it's actually pretty nice and easy to control. They're the first ones that you can add a spool gun. What that is an extra little attachment that you add, so then you can actually weld aluminum. So if you want to get into that side of things, this would be one of the cheapest options out there. They do an excellent job with their suggested settings, and if you are just starting out welding, this is a huge factor. That's mostly because half the time when you're putting down a weld, you don't know if it's the settings that are off or if it's your technique. Being a MIG welder, you can actually do thinner material. So this would be the prime welder for those auto body shops, those that are looking to do sheet metal. And if you pick up the 170 with Flux Core, you can actually do some pretty thick material as well. Now, if you're wondering which one to get, either the 140 or the 170, well, I would always say go with the 170 or the dual voltage type machine, and that's even if you don't have 220 in your garage yet. If you are new to welding, don't be like the YouTubers that just close their eyes, and go off welding barehanded. Pick up an auto darkening helmet. I was obviously in a titanium mood. Titanium doesn't have any gloves, but I just wanted to show these that the thinner, nice feeling ones are actually TIG welding gloves. So if you're getting one of the other processes, don't pick up those. Pick up like their 3-pack. It's like 12, 13 bucks. You get 3 pair. They work just great. The multi-process welders, the unlimited 140 comes in at $5.99, and then the unlimited 200 is $8.50. And as stated before, the only difference between the 140 and the 200 is the 200 is dual voltage. I've reviewed a bunch of multi-process welders, and surprisingly, not all of them come with all of the accessories. These guys do. It's actually really nice to have a TIG torch and, a stinger in there, so then you can do all processes. Now, one of the drawbacks is they don't include tungsten, rods, or wire, so regardless, you're picking up your consumables when you're there. For the TIG side of things, it does have a manual type TIG torch, and it is a lift style start. And I mean, multi-process welders are great for that person that just, kind of wants an introduction or just wants to start out welding all 4 processes and really without breaking the bank. Now, one of the disadvantages is it doesn't come with all of the features like you would get with a dedicated TIG machine. The TIG 200, it is titanium's newest welder. It's 950 bucks, and yeah, it's one of the most expensive welders, and some of the features are pretty cool, so I'll let you decide if it is actually worth that extra amount. One of the biggest features that it actually has is it's an AC output welder. Up to this point, all of the welders so far have had a DC only output. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole science side of things. Most welding with MIG, Flux Core, that kind of stuff, it doesn't really matter the output. But if you are TIG welding, it is awesome to have a machine that can do AC because that allows you to do aluminum. So short of the spool gun with the MIG welders, really an AC output TIG welder is the only way you can do aluminum. It has high frequency start and a foot pedal to control your amperage. You're not just doing it on the machine itself, you can actually control it while you're welding. It just helps you control your weld that much better. You can have a ton of settings that go into a TIG welder. So one of the disadvantages and maybe advantage to this machine is you actually can't control any of those. Just for example, my PrimeWeld 225, it has settings for AC balance, frequency, up and down slope, post flow, pulse, and it goes on and on. If you're new to TIG welding, well, all of that might be overwhelming, and the TIG 200 might be the way to go. Let's recap. If the Flux 125 broke today, I would go get another one. It's that good. Yep, go pick one up, even if you're going to use it just as a backup. The Stick 225, it would be great for the outdoor, thicker material type situations. The MIG 140 or 170. This would be perfect for in your garage in a small shop type setting where maybe you want to start up some auto body work or just kind of that really thin stuff, or you just want to dive into those MIG welds. This is a great introduction to MIG welding. The unlimited 140 or 200. Well, if you want to step out of your box and practice all 4 of those processes without breaking the bank, a multi-process welder is for you. And if you really want to step out of the box or maybe, start those aluminum projects or some very precise work, there's the TIG 200 for you. And that's all I got for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.